Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Ignite Your Heart and Soul right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My lovely guest today is Rose Basson. She is a soul writer. She writes with you beyond words, and she's also a copy coach. How did she get here? In broad strokes, she's a light worker, a healer. Her journey has taken her from intuitively majoring in English to a full-time stay-at-home parenting 5 and 2-year-olds, to this place of writing with language to help others find their way home to themselves so they can write from an authentic, grounded, nourished soul with clarity, ease, and support. No matter what copy her clients are writing, articulating the spiritual, ethereal nature of their work, creating content for their social platforms, overhauling their website to feel more aligned with who they are, her job is holding space for their soul to speak freely. She has been held, seen, and seen by many beautiful souls in her life, and her life purpose is to help others feel held, seen, and heard so they can shine and fulfill their own meaningful purpose. She loves stories, so they connected her to other people, fueled by natural empathy. And so we're going to just go right into this because this is something that I'm always saying to people when addressing their website presence or just something they want to get across. They hand themselves over to somebody that does it in either a common template or a generic type thing, and you go, but where are you in it? Where are you in it? And I think more and more people are going, I'm lost in the shuffle of sameness. My voice isn't being heard. I'm not being seen. Nobody really knows what I'm writing about or speaking about. And it's how do you stand out in your soul and spirit authenticity where you can be seen and heard? And it is a challenging one for many people, isn't it, Rose? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Sarah. Yeah, I think that really is a huge challenge for so many people because there's so much that we're taught about writing that just kind of goes out the window in these
Mm-hmm.
spaces,
Mm-hmm.
especially for spiritual people who do work that is spiritual. That's hard
Yes.
to put into words. And then there is that sea of sameness where you feel like, how do I say this in a way that's really true to me, that is energetically aligned to me, that doesn't sound like everyone else who does this? How do I, as a Reiki practitioner, say, this is who I am as a Reiki practitioner? It doesn't make you go, okay, and how is that different from every other Reiki
Yeah,
practitioner?
exactly. That authenticity of your own identity. Because,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter if you're in business or not in business, we connect to people that we resonate with, that we have a vibe and a connection with. And, you can feel that person almost before you hear them speak or anything
Mm-hmm.
else. It's that frequency that goes out. So you want to know that the person that you're meeting that you feel is real, that everything they're doing is real as well, that it is being represented. And what we're looking for, I think, in society right now is realness. Are people being authentically themselves? As they say, everybody else is taken. Stop trying to be everyone else. Just be your beautiful, abundant self and shine bright because you're shining that light, not for everyone to see, because you're shining it from your frequency, but those that see it and feel it will want to be a part of it. And so those are the people that you're writing for.
Yes, exactly. And when it comes down to it, it's so important to me to leave the pen in the client's hands. So
Mm,
even if mechanically I'm the one typing, it's always infused with your voice, physically
mm,
and energetically, because that's how your energy, your unique presence gets onto the page.
Mm. No, a lot of people are using AI for that now because it can articulate and things and it can come up with a different point of view, which is a great perspective. But when it means capturing the heart and the soul, that is something really is a human thing. Though
Yes.
who knows down the road if they will not, I think they're here to raise our higher consciousness by taking up a
Hmm.
lot of work for us, off our plate, uh, and perhaps even igniting that heart and soul in other people, because AI is quite incredible if you use it properly. But when it comes
Hmm.
to capturing the essence of a person, that's still a human spiritual condition, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think looking at AI as a way to augment our ability to raise that spiritual consciousness is such a beautiful way of being open
Mm,
and moving with the change that's around us, because that is a way that our minds have created something for
yes.
us. It's a tool for us to support us. And even in my work, I think that that can be such a beautiful tool. If what you take away from working with me is a clearer sense of what your voice is, an AI prompt is usually just a question that's open-ended that allows you to say,
Yeah.
this is the vibe I'm going for. These are the key points. And if those things are what you walk away from copy coaching
Mm.
with, then you're able to use that tool in a way that you're sure will answer your life purpose and your energy around it.
I know when I was writing my own book, it was like, who is I going to get to edit it? Because I write the way I speak, which was very rhythmically. I'm also dyslexic, so very often my sentences, will be sound like Yoda, as and my brother is a professional writer and literary master and all of that, and he elected to kind of do some editing, and I was actually quite surprised. I was expecting him to go "Rrrr" at me because my spelling and my grammar and everything else, but he picked out where the grammar and then because that's never been my strength at all, or spelling. It's when you reverse it's for vowels. Oh, don't talk to me about vowels. They always go the wrong way. Um, but he got the essence of the book, which was really incredible because he writes fiction or faction sometimes, and he's very spiritual in his writing of where he takes the story, though not necessarily practicing in his own life. But it was. I did not want to lose my voice.
Mm,
That's what people want, right? They're scared of hiring someone and go, but you're just going to write it the way you write it. Where's my
mhm,
voice in it? And this is what I say about people's websites. I go to the website and I go, yeah, it's all very nice, but it's so generic. I don't see any identity of you in there at all.
right.
And that's so important, isn't it? That our
Yes.
identity is felt, seen, and heard right off the front.
Yes, so important. And I think some of the magic really is just that a lot of people find it difficult to get their energy and their voice
Mm,
authentically onto the page. But when we have a conversation like this, I'm just looking you in the face. Who knows how
yes.
many people are going to see and hear this conversation? For me, this is just a moment of connection between Rose and Sarah. And
Hmm.
I'm happy to share that. And I'm excited to see what ripples it makes in the world. But the magic happens when we are just speaking to each
Yeah.
other as two human souls from our most aligned, authentic selves. And when that gets transcribed very
Mm,
literally onto the page, the energy of the conversation and the energy of your inner spark is
hmm.
carried with it. And that's what you're longing for when you go
Mm.
to a web page trying to understand who a person is.
Yeah. I always say, feel the knowledge, don't think it.
Mhm.
It's about that divine wisdom that comes through. It's a compass of where to go. The heart resonates with that in truth. It lifts the spirit into action for the mind to have clarity of what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And I think if we get caught up in thought, we get caught up in expectation and comparison and competition. But when we feel it, truly feel it, we truly feel the words. We see them in a different light. We feel them in a different frequency. And it really, they dance off the page so much more, don't they? Because they become almost as, like that rhythmical, that almost that musical note that's dancing in front of you.
Yes, it's such a beautiful thing to witness happening in
Mm,
another person where I like to say, get out of your conscious mind. Let your conscious
yes,
mind take a rest
yes.
and just let your soul speak. Don't
mm,
think about what's expected of you or what prompt you're
mm.
trying to meet or what you're trying to accomplish. Just speak from your soul. And when you can really let your conscious mind and all of those expectations and old narratives get out of the way, there's just, like you said, a resonance that
Yeah.
happens.
And, do not get put off by the people who immediately come up with a critique. Oh, you shouldn't have worded it like that. Or you should do
Mm-hmm.
this and you should do that. They're on their frequency in the shoulds. They've
Mm-hmm.
been maybe taught one way or they expect things one way, and they're not actually allowing knowledge to come to them unless it is in that way, which very often is so rigid that it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't allow for flow. Life is flow. Everything from us is flow. And when we can actually look and read something and go, okay, I may be not used to reading something like this, but I'm getting into the rhythm of it. And it's something new and it feels it's sparking something inside of me that wasn't there before. And that's really what we want a book to do, isn't it? Is
Mm-hmm.
spark something inside of you that you've shut down because you've been following the shoulds.
Yes, absolutely. And hearing you talk about it in this context is reminding me why I was always so drawn to poetry in my
Mm,
literature classes. And while I'm really good at grammar, because I can be so perfectionistic and detail oriented, and that can sometimes be of service, I really found myself longing to put that down, that
mm,
perfectionism and that prescriptiveness, because it didn't allow me to remain open to what I was feeling, not just in my mind, but in my soul and in my
yeah.
body as I read the things that were written from those places of deep anguish or deep love, or the Emily Dickinson poem that always
Mm,
touches my soul is hope is the thing with feathers. And those moments of connectedness and clarity and those downloads of divine wisdom that happen in those
mm.
beautiful words can't happen if you're in your conscious mind about whether it was done quote unquote correctly.
Or if you're scared of opinions,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're scared of judgment and opinion, because quite honestly, it's like with this podcast, with a book. And I've been part of 4 books this year. I have no control of who reads them, how they read them, what they do with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
What they get out of it. I have no control whatsoever. So we have to let go of that, don't we? And we have to just let
Yes.
it be something that it is what it is to whom it is meant to be. Like I say, people say, how many people listen to your show? And I said, all those that are ready to hear.
Mm,
I have no control over the numbers or how they listen or what they get out of it. Our
right.
job is to put it out there. What people do with it is a part of their life's journey.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's such a beautiful way to say it, that who listens to your work or who reads your work is whoever's meant to, whoever's
Yes.
ready to receive it. And I think there's just such a loving energy about that, in that the purest form of love is one that is true to the person giving it. And it's
Hmm.
not conditional. It's not dependent on how it's received or even if it's received. It just is.
Yes.
And I think that's true of our words too. If we truly allow them to reflect who we are, what our life purpose is, and call in whoever is in need of them, whoever's meant to
Mm.
hear them and engage with them, that is from a place of pure, even divine
Yes.
love. And that's really the energy that I infuse into my work, is to say, you just be you,
Hmm.
and you bring your energy and you bring your love, and trust that whoever is meant to read these words will read them as you said them, as
Hmm.
they are, not as you may have thought they were supposed to be.
Mm. A big one, a big one. I mean, basically, you've got the best of both worlds. You have the grammar and the orderly technique, but you have, the poetry and the spiritual. So,
Yeah.
we can sometimes go off on a spiritual tangent, which we do need to hone in a little bit and,
Yes.
articulate in a way that doesn't, get people lost because we do want to be engaged. So, although
Right.
we want to lift people up and take them outside of their human self into their spiritual self, at the same time, we've still got to have that grounding that they don't feel
Yes.
they're floating up in the air and getting lost.
Yes, it's so funny that you use that word too, because grounding in guided meditations or in whatever practice works for my clients is something that I always suggest as a part of the writing process.
Hmm.
Because I think sometimes it's so easy to just kind of go on that soul journey and
Yes.
wherever your meditation takes you. But if you translate that into words, you can kind of lose your reader. And if you're
Hmm.
opening up a conversation and building a relationship, you do need to have that grounded sort of tangible element in your language that allows people to engage and go on the journey with you.
A little structure. I'm
Yes.
I'm I'm not an earthbound person. If I walk flat foot on the ground, I feel its pain. I'm a cosmic child. So, for me,
Mm.
I'm very much about, the wind and the fluidity and the current of the water. And so it's through raising three of my own children, I had to find a bit of rooting. And then 12 years here of podcasting, I've had to find structure in order to put these shows out and everything. And like my spirit was no, no, no. And my rationale was like, it's gotta happen, and it can be for a very spiritual person a hard thing. How do I take this whole essence of me and put it on a page in a structured manner?
Yes, I think it can be so overwhelming. And I experience that overwhelm occasionally
Mm,
myself when
mm,
I go to fill out an AI prompt
mm.
because it's just this blank canvas and it's like, how how do I distill in 500 words what my brand voice is supposed to be when I'm this expansive soul with all these different
Yes,
modalities and all these different interests and I don't even live on earth half the time. And
exactly.
so I can totally relate to that. And I think that that's one of the places where support from another human soul is
Yeah.
so necessary and where it bridges that gap where
Mm,
AI is a tool and it's really great at that if you can answer the prompt. But sometimes the magic in answering that prompt is just connecting with another human soul who understands you and who can reflect back to you in words the energy that you're communicating. So for me, answering that prompt for myself would be really difficult. But listening to you talk about your work, I could answer it in 500 words based on what you've said to me in the last 10 minutes.
I couldn't. I will have to go. For me is what I do use AI in that because again the reverse, it's not so much reversal of words, it's that vowels definitely. And of course I
Mm.
do sometimes talk like Yoda. It does come out, and so I give it to AI, and what it does is it reorganizes it for me in a more tangible way. And so it
Mm.
kind of says what my head is trying to say, but my soul got in the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny to think of it in that order. I also think it's just a lovely way to be reminded that we need each other. We're
Yes,
not,
yes,
we are who we are and we're meant to be our unique selves. We all need to be our unique selves. But those unique selves are exactly the other people that we need.
exactly. I mean, balance, yin yang, light,
Hmm.
dark. People think, oh, the darkness, it's so evil. And I was caught in the darkness for a good 8 years in my life and finally came out and it was all just too bright and I could feel the shadows chasing me until I got to a point where the darkness was my contour to my light. And now I can go into the darkness happily because I am the light in the darkness. And
Mm.
we become so afraid of the darkness. And if we bring fear to the darkness and confusion and pain and anguish, it feels like it's suppressing you. When you come at it with peace and light as a canvas for paint on this darkness, the light
Mm.
of what I need to see, it becomes clarity. But we have to be willing to take the journey to
Yes,
understand and the balance of the yin and the yang. It's not if or, right? It's and. And
yes,
that's I think kind of a hard thing for us to do, especially if people are in the spiritual realm.
yes. It is really hard. And I find that that is so much of my work is
Mm,
really just encouraging a person to go through the darkness so
mm.
that they can come home to themselves and remember that they are that light so
Yes.
that when they see those shadows, they know that they're being cast by light,
Hmm.
that there isn't just darkness and a void.
Hmm.
And going on that journey with someone who is holding up a mirror for you and shining a little extra light until you can sort of stoke your own flame back to its more nourished place. That's that's really powerful. So so doing copy work is really just kind of incidental. It just happens to be something that I'm good at.
Yeah.
But really, the journey that I always want to take with my clients is to build a relationship where I can act as that anchor for you, where I can act as a beacon, where I can hold up a mirror, because that's the process. What
Yes.
you just described is having that relationship with the light and the dark and
Mm.
being able to get to that clarity because you know that you yourself are the light is where your authentic voice comes from as a writer or as a speaker or in any space in your life.
And I suppose you get a lot of people who go, yeah, but I don't know if I'm ready to write a book yet. I think I need to have more experience, and they downplay the journey they've had. And we've got to realize when we're putting something out there that I interview people, and I've had in my books because I produced an anthology, um, people who have had the experiences and like who they are because of them are absolutely exemplary. They're a beacon of light, of courage, strength, ability, meaningful purpose. But let us not undermine the people that have just taken the first few steps and how inspirational they are. And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean there's just one book in you or one story in you. It's that share where you're at and where you're going and keep coming
Mm-hmm.
back and sharing that journey because that becomes that beacon of light for someone else.
Yes, absolutely. And that's been a guiding principle in my life. I made a commitment to myself upon a life-changing event 10 years
Mm,
ago that if I, at the time I said if, now I know it was when I
mm-hmm,
survive and I get to this place where I know I'm the light again, I'll talk about it because
mm,
someone else did that for me. Not even knowing who I was. She just wrote a blog post because that's what was in her heart. And in a crucial moment of deciding to continue surviving, that was what kicked my butt and
yeah,
got me out the door and
exactly.
into that light again. And so that's something that I bring to my own life and to my work, and also try to affirm for my clients that it's really, truly the most beautiful thing you can share when you
Mm,
feel like there's a gap in your content is where are you? What are
mm,
you living through right now? What is this
mm,
experience? Be vulnerable, be real, and trust that you are both providing support by being vulnerable and performing an act of bravery by reaching for support in
yeah.
that vulnerability as well.
People kind of think vulnerability is something that's, is an open door for people to come and help hurt you. And vulnerability with boundaries.
Mm,
Right, that's the thing. Having the boundaries. People that don't resonate within this particular frequency sphere cannot penetrate those boundaries, and you are
yes,
safe to be vulnerable in within that sphere. And it's a kind of essential that we all feel that vulnerability because that's being honest and true to ourselves, isn't it? And a way that
yes.
we love and nurture and forgive and thrive. But if we're refusing that vulnerability because we're scared of what people will do with it, then I feel that we're never actually going to truly immerse into our true, beautiful essence.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's something about vulnerability and connection with other humans that allows us to really know ourselves and love ourselves and even to sometimes see the parts of ourselves
Mm,
reflected in other people that we wouldn't have engaged with otherwise.
yes.
And I think you're right, that piece of having those boundaries of creating that energetic force field around us that says,
Mm,
I intend and I invite the supportive, loving energy that will help me to shine as
mm,
myself and thrive as my most authentic self. And also, I reject whatever is
mm,
not that. I release whatever is not that. I think that's a really vital piece of just being a human who's
yeah.
living an aligned life, let alone being in community and having the impact that we were meant to have.
I always say that there's the cosmic nudge, nudge, wink, wink, where, and then there's the cosmic two by four. Right. And most of the time, as humans, we don't pay attention to the nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Right. There's little
Mm-hmm.
redirections, pay attention. We're just la, 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 go on. And then
Yep.
whackaroo, we get the cosmic two by four. Do you feel what happened to you 10 years ago was that a cosmic two by four,
Hmm.
a redirection?
Interesting. Yes, I think in a sense it was. I think from my perspective at the time, I felt as though I was listening to some inner whispers and to
Mm,
some nudges. And looking back comparatively, that moment was a cosmic two by four.
hmm.
But I also am grateful for how gentle it felt to me at the
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. Not every
because
one of
it
them has to knock you out.
right. Yeah, I mean it was a very clear I have to do this, I
Yeah.
have to get out, I have to survive, but it was also just such a loving I was met with embrace and I
Mm,
was met with support. And even though, there were lots of twists and turns and there was grief and there was loss, and I thought I had this really fragile heart, I was able to start listening more and more to those nudges, to trust them more and more,
yeah.
and to kind of come to a place of alignment with my own intuition so that the two by fours are fewer and farther between the older I
Yes.
get.
I don't know if you want to share what happened to you, whether it was a relationship or what, but that's up to you.
Oh, I'm happy to share that was the commitment I made that I referred to earlier. I was raised by my birth parents who are not my soul family, a detour that I took,
Mhm.
and it brought me to a place of being physically unwell. My immune system attacked itself, and I was tired and brain fog and pain head to toe. Um, it was a household that was in a cult and was just not healthy. There was
Mhm.
the abuse and disconnection instead of love and embrace.
Mm,
Um, and and by the time I reached high school, I was sort of debilitated by a chronic illness that was undefined. And then I went to college, and I thought, well, at least I know I can write, so I guess I'll major in English. And as I landed in a bunch of literature classes, I found myself reading a novel, and I identified so strongly with the protagonist because he was having an existential crisis, trying to reconcile becoming a priest in the Orthodox Church and being mentally and emotionally abused by his
mm,
father and brothers at home, who were the very ones who expected him to become this priest. And I looked at that character and I thought, you look a lot like me. And
mm,
then I went to see a counselor at the college and I said, I'm really depressed and there's a lot of stuff going on in my life and it looks a lot like what's happening in this book. And he pulled up the American Psychological Association's definition of a cult, and we read through all those bullet points,
mm,
and I just wept with my hands in my face as I checked box after box after box. And I knew in that moment that I had to get out. And when it came time to leave, I had all my stuff packed and I just sat on my bed paralyzed. And I thought, I wonder if someone else has been through this.
mm,
And so I just Googled stories of cult survivors. And the one that came up was this woman who had grown up in a cult that was a lot more isolated. I lived in the center of town, and
mm.
the cult itself was isolated, but I wasn't
Yeah.
physically or geographically. So she had grown up on a compound and had like 19 siblings, and she escaped as a young woman. And she promised each of those siblings that she'd come back for them. And then she did. And then she
Mm,
wrote this blog post. And I remember thinking to myself, if she can do it for all of them, I can do it just once for
yeah.
just me.
Yeah.
And so I climbed out my window, trembling head to toe, crying my eyes out, not sure where I was going to sleep or where my next meal would come from. And what felt like happened was I stepped out the window and I was met with someone who loved me, who offered me a bed, and someone who loved me, who made sure I ate once a day, who turned out to be my best friend, now husband.
Hmm.
Um,
Ah, wonderful.
and lots of people in my path who just said, yeah, you've got a physical need and I can meet it. And just held space for me to have my physical needs met so that I could confront those inner demons
Yes.
and walk into those dark places and remember that I was the light. And throughout it, there was this spark that I think those nudges from the universe were sort
Hmm.
of speaking to that just never went out, where I never lost my ability to smile. And I
Hmm.
always held on to this belief that no matter how horribly I was abused, every human soul is a spiritual being who is capable of finding their way to the light.
Yeah.
And it's a reckless hope and sometimes an irrational hope. And it's one that I just absolutely refuse to let go of. And now in this season of my life, I've found my way home to my soul family and I'm surrounded by truly beautiful unconditional love and support. And and I am seen for who I am and celebrated for that. And so what I get to bring to the world is seeing those inner sparks in all the souls around me and saying to them, you're beautiful exactly the way you are, and I want to
Exactly.
see more of you. And your unique spark is needed.
Hmm. Yes, most certainly. And I'm glad that there was someone there, quote, to catch you that is now a part
Yes.
of your life. But it takes that courage to realize I am not where I'm meant to be. I am not who
Mm-hmm.
I am meant to be. And when people are so suppressed by other people, you can feel it. It's like if you push, hold your hands and don't move them, but push. And you can feel a pressure building up. And it feels like that, with that pressure on top of you all the time. And you don't know quite how to articulate it or what to do
Mm-hmm.
with it, but it just is pushing you down. And that is the cult thing to do. They don't want you thinking for themselves. I've actually done
Right.
quite a number of shows on people who've come from a cult. And it always surprises me that, you know, cults are still so big. But then on the other hand, looking at the world right now, where so many people are lost, looking to be found, the cults
Mhm.
are the vultures that are there to pick them up and chew their bones.
Yes.
So, and funny enough, my brother's book, his latest book was on a child leaving a cult.
Oh,
So,
wow.
um, but it's all about whether we're looking at a cult, whether we're looking at society as a whole, where we're looking at religion, organizations, political, what we are looking at is suppression.
Hmm.
Suppression of your word, your freedom, some people go your rights. But we all have to understand what rights are, and that means we need to be responsible in our
Hmm.
action, in our choices, not only for ourselves but for those around us. It's just like it's me rights, and I can bring out a pitchfork. It's about your right to live, to have freedom, to be who you are meant to be. That is a right,
Hmm.
but it also is a responsibility. It's also up to you. People can aid you along the way, but you've
Yes.
got to be willing to take the journey open-hearted, open-minded, in spirit, guided by soul.
Yes. Oh, so beautifully said. And I think that speaks to exactly why agency is such an important
Mm,
part of my own life and of my work. And I often find myself thinking that I was finally able to find my way home to my soul
mm,
family because I did the really hard work of finding my way home to myself.
yes.
If I hadn't done that, I don't know that I would have recognized them when I finally
Mm,
found my way home to them. And so that carries over into my work, and that it's important to me for my clients to have agency in their work. It's
hmm.
not about me figuring out the formula so that I can go away and write and sound just like you. I mean, that's
Mm,
a cool hat trick, but it's
yeah,
not.
yeah.
It's not the goal. The goal is for you to be sure of what your voice is so that you can find it whenever you go to write.
Hmm.
And, if you need support, sometimes we all need support. Sometimes they're sticky, challenging things, or we have mental blocks and uncover an old story or an old experience that we need to liberate or transmute. And I'm always here for that. But what I want for everyone in my life is to be sure of and confident in and lovingly present in their agency.
We are all an instrument in discovery. Once we
Mm-hmm.
discover what instrument we are, how to play it, we can be soloists. But when we join an orchestra, each one of us in our own strength must now play together in harmony. And that's where we transcend. You are a conductor, helping people hone in their instrument, learning how to play it for themselves, being ready to share it with the orchestra.
Mm, that's I hadn't thought of that metaphor for the work that I do, but that's beautiful and I feel very seen in the way that you articulated that. So I received that with an open heart. Thank you.
Please do. Open soul too. And that's
Yes.
the thing is there's always somebody there that's going to help us on our journey. And one of the big problems is that sometimes we crunch down. I don't know how, I don't know what to do. And what happens? We crunch. And when we crunch, there's no fluidity, there's no oxygen, there's no clarity, there's nothing. This is the time that we need to expand the chest and the arms and the thought and the spirit. I don't know what to do. Please guide me. I am open and willing to receive. That is
Mm,
trust, right?
yes.
Oops, sorry.
Okay. And yeah,
Oh,
and trust is something that I
I'm
ask
sorry.
of my clients.
Sorry for that interruption, folks. Grandson crisis. So we are
No
back. I'm
problem.
talking about trust. Please continue, Han.
Yeah, so I think trust is such an important part of the relationship that I have with my clients because you do have to come in with that openness and that willingness to be in this really vulnerable, I call
Mm,
it the gooey cocoon space of finding this place where you are sure of who you are and you are sure of what your energy bubble is
mm,
inviting in and releasing or rejecting. And I am absolutely willing and honored to be in that space with a person. And so when my clients ask me, how do I prepare for a session? I go, put down whatever you're working on that you're stressed about,
mm,
get out of your mind
hmm.
about it. Just do what you need to do to ground and come to a place where you can meet me with that openness and that trust. Because the work that we're doing together isn't just writing, it is finding
Yeah,
that place
yeah.
together. And so that's my only ask, really, is just trust me to hold that space for
Mhm.
you and to have your goals in my conscious mind so that your mind can be free to do that shadow work or whatever it
Yeah.
is that you need to do to come home to yourself.
How many people start off, well, I'm going to write about this, and then on their journey, it ends up taking them in a totally different place, unexpected, but really was the story that needed to be told.
Yeah, I think the way that that manifests for a lot of people is that they'll start to describe what they want to work on, and their description of what they're trying to write that they've been struggling to write is the thing itself.
Yes.
So if I start typing what they're saying, when I ask them the question, what's the hardest thing for you to talk about? The hardest thing for them to talk about is then the thing that they're talking about, and without even realizing it, they've written that thing.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's a really exciting way that that comes out. And then sometimes it's more nebulous than that. Sometimes it's I have a new offer and I don't know how to talk about it, and so then I ask a question that prompts them to talk about it, and suddenly it becomes this conversation. And all the questions that you need to answer: what do you expect from your offer? What do you want your clients to walk away from it with? What inspired you to create this? All of those questions get answered because we're just having a conversation. When you might have thought you were working on a landing page, you're
Hmm.
actually filling out the whole communication thread about this thing and answering all the questions and having all of those conversations because we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of takes you and also I think there's a beauty in what you're getting to with that question is that the if you do just ride those waves and let the energy take you, the creative energy and the clarity energy take you, there's ease in that.
Yes.
So if you're willing to trust me to kind of hold in my conscious mind, there's a question we might need to come back to check off
Hmm.
that box on your list of goals and just speak from your soul. You'll go where you're needed. Your words will go where they're needed.
There's the big word allow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Get out of your own way and allow. I know that when I was going to write my book, I was going to do audio and then transcribe it. Then I was going to do this and do that. And then I took 3 weeks off work a year and a half ago, and I put my fingers to the keyboard and it wrote itself. And it's
Yes.
just, I got out of my own way of dictating how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And, then afterwards, you've got that canvas. Now you can rearrange, right? Now you
Yes.
can perfect, take away, add, or whatever. But, people are so, I've got to get it perfect. It's got to be there. No, not on the first draft. Let
No.
it come out. And just reading things
Yes.
back, even my own brother going, gosh, a lot of loneliness in your life. I wasn't
Mm.
aware. And I said, nor was I. And this is the thing is when you read things back, yes, you wrote it, but you wrote it, kind of subconsciously. And then when you consciously read it back, you go, gosh, I wasn't aware of that. And it's a
Yes.
wonderful reveal to yourself. So imagine what kind of reveal it would be to someone else who's going on that journey.
Exactly. Yeah, I think two really amazing things are happening in that scenario that you're describing. One is, and I borrow a phrase from my friend Laura Livingston, perfect enough. And we're all human. And
Yes.
so when we speak from the soul, it's not going to come out in a way that checks all the grammar and punctuation boxes. And that's okay
Hmm.
because our words don't have to be perfectly organized or T's crossed and I's dotted in order for the energy that's needed. to carry through them. And the other thing is that there is breakthrough in just getting something on the page
Yeah.
and realizing that you did have the words. They were inside of you. Your job was just to let them out. And like you said, get out of your
Open
own
the
way so that
gates.
can happen.
Yes, no,
Yes.
and that's getting out of thought. The spirit and the soul have, they know what it needs to be said. And,
Yes.
the head is still in the should. I oughta,
Right.
I've gotta, and it's no, you gotta get out of your own way and let it flow.
Yes.
And that's where you come in by then taking those beautiful musical notes and perfecting them in a
Yes.
in a fluid way that the grammar is there, the structure is there, but taking, I mean, how many musicians, a song comes out, it's absolutely great, how long do they work on it before they fine-tuned it ready, for the
Mm-hmm.
latest record or the latest hit? And it's, yes, it may spew out of them and the rough draft, but there's always that tweaking and perfection and bringing it out in its best essence. And that's what you're doing with them, taking the words and bringing it out as the finished
Yes.
product that both has that structure but at the same time has that liberty of freedom to be their
Yes.
voice.
Yeah. It's absolutely. And so much of what I end up doing as a proofreader or an editor is just rearranging the
Yes.
words that were said. They're usually said in the most beautiful, rhythmic, authentic, and unique way that all I need to do is punctuate them to reflect that rhythm and that energy. And a lot of that is really just moving the words around so that they flow
Mm-hmm.
with that same energy. And that's so beautiful to me to be able to, one of my favorite experiences in a client session is being able to just go, I'm going to not move anything around, not change anything, not fix any of my typographical errors. I'm just going to read back to you exactly what you said to
Mm-hmm.
me. And seeing someone's words and energy outside of themselves
Mm-hmm.
impact them the way that
Yes.
they were hoping they could impact another person is just magical.
Mm-hmm. You can have generic editors. They'll do it the grammatic right way. But
Mm-hmm.
what I have found, my brother, I used to write for his online magazine, and he would rewrite it. And I said, please don't do that. Yes, grammar, pronunciation, and all of that, you can do that. Spelling, yes, because I'm terrible at it. But what you're doing is completely rewriting my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And you're writing it from, the professor's way of how you think it should be. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
please don't lose my flow because the flow is my voice.
Yes.
And then he was kind of astonished of how many people would reach out to me. Oh, that article saved my marriage, right? Which he kind of looked at and go, but yes, no, it's not. It's not university level. It's honest
Right.
communication. And
Yes.
quite honestly, that's what people are wanting. Give me
Yes.
something to connect to, something I can resonate with, something where I feel my story is in there. Right?
Yes.
How did you do it? I'm stuck in this. Gosh, what an inspiration you are, which has now invited me to
Mm-hmm.
take my own journey. Right?
Yes.
That's that illumination. That is what you want people to feel. That
Yes.
illumination.
Yeah, it is. It's seeing the spark in another human being and going,
Mm.
oh, there's mine.
Yes.
And being able to hear that resonance off the other
Mm.
souls around you
Mm.
and to feel the flame in yourself burn a little brighter because you can see it burning in the other people.
So the gift that you have, as I said before, you have the structure and the ability to take the words, in the context of what the way they're written, that the foundation and the rooting is there. But also, as I said, setting the stage, like with the musician, he knows the
Mm-hmm.
piece, right? The piece, he's got
Yes.
all the technical down, but now how do you bring out the true essence of that piece? And that is when the musician and the instrument become one. And
Mm-hmm.
when they become one, now they transcend, and that conductor there can really lead them. And that's the thing is, yes, there's all the technical stuff, there's all the foundational stuff, but you've got to give the words that can be foundated in a way that they can still fly.
Yes. Yes, for sure. And I think there's an element of that where most people, if they're in a flow state, are capable of speaking more articulately than they realize.
Mm,
So if I can capture a moment where you've spoken so articulately and from such an aligned place that you can see that that's happened, then you know from experience with instantaneous feedback what it feels like when you and the instrument are one.
Yeah.
And then you can keep going back to that place with more and more consistency and ease.
I have a genre, for the love of music, and I love interviewing musicians because they are the soul. They are the
Mm-hmm.
instrument, whether it's their voice is the instrument is their instrument. They're singing and performing from the soul. They're
Yes.
connected to the heart, and the spirit is flying. And it's just so wonderful to see and hear. But why can't we do that in every aspect of our life? I don't care if you're an engineer, bring some rhythm to it, right? You might
Yeah.
actually see it from a different point of view.
Yeah, I see that in my husband. He's a coder, and I see this beautiful, creative, expansive energy where he can see the big picture of what needs to happen in a system and then zoom back in and use
Mhm.
that coding expertise, which is incredibly left
Yeah.
brain,
Yes.
to generate a creative solution to a problem, a dynamic, sustainable solution to a
Mm,
problem. And that's just such a beautiful marriage of that soul and
mm,
body kind of mechanic where he is bringing rhythm to something
yeah.
that is objectively left-brained
Right.
and
He's bringing
tangible.
meaning to it,
Yes,
right? Because otherwise
yes,
something just feels, so robotic. But now when we
right.
look at AI, we can't say so robotic anymore because sometimes, my son-in-law um, took my voice and did his voice and did a 3.5 hour, a 3.5 minute skit on me interviewing Colonel Mustard on condiments. And it was absolutely hilarious. And it sounded like me. And of course, he changed his voice to sound like a professor, Professor Mustard. But it was so funny, but at the same time, so incredibly creative. And we've got to realize
Hmm.
AI is learning from us. So I actually, when I
Yes.
use it, I say please and I say thank you because I want it to
Hmm.
learn that as well, right? So,
Yes.
that the thing is, there are tools around us. You are quintessentially, I still feel you are the conductor. You're taking those
Yeah.
tools and showing them how to use those tools, perfect their piece, but now bring out that soul and that heart and that spirit, the why they're playing that piece, the why that piece is so important. If we
Yes.
don't have a why to it, then we don't have a meaning to it. If we don't have a meaning to it, it's just a bunch of words.
Yes. It's true. Yeah, and I think that's one of the joys of my work too, is asking those questions that really allow a person to not just answer the question directly, why, but to
Mm,
just kind of talk their way to why,
yeah,
to answer the question from an organic conversation, because it always comes up. If it's your life purpose and that's your inner spark, it will always find its way
yeah.
into your conversations. And just creating a space where those conversations can happen is, I think, what allows that soul to be present in the use of the instrument.
I interviewed a veteran once who'd written a book about a particular event where he lost some buddies and they were bogged down and they couldn't escape and Grimaldi, I think it was. And I had him back again. And after the book had launched, and he said, I had no idea the impact, how many people, like parents, would come to them who had lost their child, in
Mm,
the war, and saying, understanding what they were going through, understanding the camaraderie, even understanding other veterans of why that camaraderie is so important because literally they are, life and
mm,
death in a split second, supporting one another. And he said, I wrote this book to tell this story. I had no idea the impact it was going to have. And that's
oh,
going back to it of don't dictate who should read it or how they should use it.
mhm.
Let it be, give it a white light and send it on its way, and
Yes.
it will have the impact it's meant to have. And that's wonderful if you know about it, if people actually do reach out to tell you. But sometimes you just have to let it go,
Hmm.
let it flow, and then concentrate on the next one.
Yes. Yes. I could not agree more. I think there is so much power in setting an intention for how we put something out into the world and how we allow pieces of ourselves to go out into
Yes.
the world.
Yes. And that's really what we are doing, right? We're sending out pieces of ourselves, like we are here in this
Hmm.
podcast today, in the books. Every time we meet people, we're sharing ourselves.
Yes.
And we need to share ourselves unapologetically in ownership
Absolutely.
of who we are. And if somebody doesn't get us, don't take it personally. They're just not in your vibe tribe, right?
Right.
So just keep
Yes,
on going. There'll be other people there that get you. And that's,
indeed.
don't worry about the numbers. That's the big
Yes.
one, right? And
Quality
also,
over quantity.
oh yes, 100%. Now you've got a couple of free giveaways, which is the Beyond Words spell book, which is your
Yes.
free workshop resource, and also find our magic consult. Can you tell us about that, please, love?
Yes, I can. So the spell book was actually sort of an accident. I didn't realize that I was writing a whole book of spells.
Oh,
I had a few common pain points among my clients, and I thought, not everybody has the resources in time or finances to hire a coffee coach to break through these things. But I still want to share that breakthrough
mm,
with anyone who needs it. And so I created these worksheets that sort of guide you through questions that I might ask you in a session, and sort of ground you in, okay, now put yourself in a context. Let's do a visualization where you're sitting across the table from someone who loves you and just wants to know what's burning in your soul. And then as you answer these questions, it can create breakthrough for whatever scenario, whether you're writing about a new offer, overhauling your website, trying to figure out what skills to list on your resume,
mhm.
any number of things. And then the free magic, find our magic consult is just, that's how I start any client relationship, because we have to know if we're aligned, right?
Yeah,
So it's like
yes.
when we decided to do this podcast, we had a conversation, we connected, we could feel
Mhm.
the energy alignment. That's what I want for all of my
Yeah,
clients. I don't ever want there to be a, oh, it doesn't feel quite right. And
yeah,
and then you don't get the value out of the
right.
work that was intended.
Mm,
So we always start with a 45-minute copy coaching session with a few minutes at the end to just discuss, is this aligned for you?
yeah,
Is it aligned for both of us?
yes.
What does it look
Are we
like
in
to
sync?
exactly? And then we sort of make a plan from there. So if that can create breakthrough for you to just spend an hour and see where it goes, that's my intention is always that you walk away from that, find our magic consult with a sense of your own magic, that
Mm.
you have a stronger sense of what your voice is, and that confidence that you can come back to it.
There is no one size fits all. And
Correct.
especially if you're trusting somebody with your words, you need to have somebody that isn't all business, right?
Yes.
You have to have the business side of it. That's the hat that has to go on, but is truly immersed in the essence of your soul story. And that really will allow you to speak your words. As you said, you're
Yes.
just conducting those words and making sure that that music is coming out perfectly. So I have here on your show sheet here, which people only have to just put in selfdiscoverywisdom.com and put in Rose Basson, Basson, and you'll see those links to it, but also they'll find it on your website, which is spellworkbyrose.com, spellworkbyrose.com. And you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Linktree, and anything else that you want to share with us here, Han?
I think if you could take away anything from this conversation, I hope that you're left with some clarity and ease, and that you feel supported. And that whether you work with me or use any of those free resources, that you can find your voice and know that it is perfect just the way that it is.
I think the other thing to add to it, you do not have to be a celebrity to write your book or your
Yes,
story. And you
yes,
may just want to be a blogger and know how to be a better blogger and do those words, right? Which you can help them with
yes.
that. Or it may be a book, or maybe something you just want to do for your family. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And please do not go, but I'm not famous or I'm not this, I'm not that. No, every story counts. Every
Yes,
story is speaking to someone out there that needs to read it, hear it, and feel it. So do not
yes,
hold yourself back from your story because you should or should I, or what will people think? No, how do you feel? And let have that conversation with you because you'll know from
mm-hmm.
there, is there a
Yes,
story here to be told?
yes. I have never not been touched by someone sharing a story. And so just to piggyback on that, even if you're just writing for yourself,
Yeah,
it's worth doing.
yes. And so many people today are kind of writing a love story or a book story just for the family as a
Mm-hmm.
legacy, and which is also beautiful. So
It is.
whichever way, whether it is something you're writing for the family, it doesn't matter which way it is, you have words, experience, love, passion, meaning in you that need to come out. Let
Yes.
them free, let them come out, and you're there to help them put it in a way for it to go wherever it needs to go.
Yes. Absolutely. Always here.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, heroes. I love the work that you're doing. I love the fact that it is the yin and the yang. You've got the structure and the fundamentals on how to build,
Hmm.
but you've also got the beautiful building blocks of how to make sure that the words are truly said, heard, and felt. Because we don't just read, folks. If we just read, it's just words, plain, linear. But when we feel the words, when we feel the words are speaking to us and we're hearing them, that's when we really are connecting. And
Yes.
a good book, I got another genre called Office Kiss. We put this under Ignite Your Heart and Soul because it is about your soul, but it could have gone under Author's Kiss and it could even gone under business. But the reason why that Author's Kiss, because I think every book leaves a kiss. And a
Yes.
book keeps on giving. You can go back and revisit a book and just go, what do I need to know today? And go to a page and there's a
Mm.
statement there that is speaking to you, or you can reread it and you're in a different place, in a different space. And all of a sudden that book is speaking to you in a different way. So
Yes.
books keep on giving. So give the gift
Hmm.
that keeps on giving. Reach out to
Yes.
Rose and start writing your story.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you very much. And to everyone out there, start. Don't hold yourself back. You've got a story in you. We need to hear it. There's somebody out there that needs to hear it. You could be that light, that inspiration for someone else that invites them to share their story or take their journey of life. So until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.